Bioethics Lesson 3. All right, week 2. So, welcome back to Bioethics, everyone. We're talking about gender theory, much to your chagrin, but that's fine because we're going to keep talking about it. So, we're still talking about gender theory this week. I'm joined by a couple guests who are probably more qualified than me to speak on the topic. We have Mr. Max Carson of Dowling. He coordinates Ut Feedum. You've heard of it. If you haven't, how are you a senior at Dowling? And we also have Mr. Walter Pugh. He teaches theology at Sacred Heart in Boone. Both are educated in Catholic philosophy, and so should provide some kind of insights beyond my own blather, which you're subjected to twice a week. So, gender theory. Let's talk about our learning goals. So, as usual, we're going to review relativism and moral relativism, even though we've talked about it 1,000 times. Then, 3 things, really. We're going to talk about secular views on gender theory, the church's views on gender theory, and then compare and contrast masculinity and femininity. We probably won't get into the body versus mind sort of stuff today because it's not just me yabbering on, it's some other people yabbering on. So, gender theory from the secular view, the church's view, and then what is it to be masculine and what is it to be feminine. All right, so remember, relativism is the belief that there is no absolute truth. Of course, philosophically, it's ridiculous to say there is no absolute truth because the claim that there is no absolute truth is an absolute truth claim, and so contradictory. And beyond that, it's ridiculous to say that there is no absolute truth because clearly some things are just true. The sun exists. You exist. Those are absolutely true. Do we live in the Matrix? Maybe, but then the Matrix exists, right? There are absolute truths, and even moral truths, right? The moral relativist says something like, nothing in the realm of morality is absolute, but clearly it's absolutely wrong to murder innocents, right? Clearly. And so certainly some things in the realm of morality are absolutely true, and so relativism is problematic, and so we're not going to base our discussion on the idea that everything is relative. All right. Cobwebs, everyone. We are going to be kind and charitable about all of our discussions. All right. All people, regardless of their gender identity or religious beliefs or political beliefs or anything at all, are loved by God and should be treated respectfully. So don't take anything that we say to be disrespectful or uncharitable. So we're going to talk first and primarily about the views of Western culture on gender theory and the views of the church on gender theory. First up, what does our culture say about sexual identity? Now, before I just read the slide to you, which would be boring, I might pose the question to our panel of experts about, what do you think our culture says about sexual identity?
Well, it's been saying more about sexual identity in the past 50 years than I would say ever before. One of them being that sexual identity is on a spectrum. You can be this much feminine to this much masculine instead of a binary way of thinking as people have thought about much before. The Western culture says that you can choose your sexuality, whether you want to be male or female. You can decide on that anytime in your life. Anything else?
Maybe like on another side of it as well, like maybe there isn't so much caring about like sexual identity or like or gender at all. Maybe there's kind of an absence of like caring as to whether one identifies as this or that. Like, so I'd say that there's kind of like almost a reservation, like a reserved view from society. I mean, absent of like really like the polar opposites. But I think like generally speaking, like I think people maybe don't care as much.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think there's probably a lot of people who regardless of, like right-wing, left-wing political views or religious views, kind of just think like, well, people can do whatever they want about their gender and it doesn't really bother me anyway.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like if that's their choice, that's something that they will deal with and it doesn't bother me in my decisions.
Right. It's reflective. I think it's reflective of more of like kind of the relativist culture. Like kind of it does, as long as you're finding some sort of happiness, then it doesn't really matter to me.
Right. And do you think it's fair to really hold the view that people can do whatever they want that makes them happy. Basically, period.
Well, a murderer, something that makes him happy is murdering other people.
Okay, well, surely it's
Right.
not okay for a murderer to be happy. But do you think it'd be, okay to say something like, you can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't hurt somebody?
I mean, in some sense, I could see why that might be appealing, right? Because it seems like they're only talking about like themselves. It's only referring to themselves. But I would say it also we would also say that there's a personal good though that has to be like achieved as well. I would say like you could say of me that I'm not meeting my greatest good, so like it really wouldn't it wouldn't be very human of you to let me go on like mutilating myself, even if it didn't hurt you or Max, like or go on
like okay, so to take it to an extreme, if you wanted to say kill yourself,
right.
It wouldn't affect me per se. Now, obviously, we don't want anyone to kill himself. That's bad, right? That people who want to kill themselves, we need to provide, help to and whatever care we can provide to those people. But perhaps, right, if we say people can do whatever they want as long as it doesn't hurt me, that would sort of give some justification for like, well, just let people do whatever they want, even if it's to the extreme of like killing themselves.
Right.
When clearly we ought to provide some sort of care and help for those people.
Right. I think that's why we have like an understanding of what the common good is. Like, common good doesn't just mean like what we all do together, but it also like has to do with what we do as individuals, like by ourselves, or like within like the microcosm of like community that makes up me as me, Walter. Like,
right. And I think something you're hitting on, and your example makes clear, is that when we think about it as whatever makes me happy I can do and doesn't affect anyone else, that's coming from a very individualistic ideal of society, where really the reality is we do live in common, and so our choices that we do to ourselves affect those of others.
right.
In the case of suicide, right, like you can do what you want if it makes you happy, right? And if it's to the extreme of suicide, well, that kind of gets to the point, like, obviously that would affect us as your friends,
right.
who would
rather have you around.
who would rather have you around.
Right.
Because all of us we're each individuals, but as human beings, as social beings, we are made for community. So really, what we do choose for ourselves is something that does affect others, because we come into relationship with others and become more of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Around others.
You can't be ignorant of the reality of community,
right?
So like the social.
That seems fair, right? I mean, clearly it's too simplistic to say something like, do whatever you want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, because most of the things you do affect your community and those around you and those sort of things. So
right.
If we go specifically to the issue of gender theory, all right, so many of the political leaders in our Western culture and many of the like cultural leaders in our Western culture say stuff like, promote the idea that a person who is born sexually a man might decide to be a woman, or a person that is born sexually a woman might decide to be a man, right? We see lots of examples of this. If you ask your smart home to voice what gender it is, it will just say, I don't care. Target spent a lot of money to renovate its restrooms to be gender neutral. Of course, I mean, just changing a restroom to a one-stall restroom isn't something objectively bad, but they're clearly accepting of this idea that you can, decide what gender you are. Right? Many of our TV programs and movie programs include characters who are born a certain sex but decide that they're a different gender. Right? And so the idea that it is normal and good for a person to be born a certain biological sex but claim a different gender seems to be being pushed by many people in our society. Right? The idea that it's normal and good to claim a different gender than your biological sex seems to be portrayed as normal. Right? Am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely seems to be normal in our Western culture.
Right. So
It seems to be.
it seems to be, right?
Mhm.
So as Catholics, should we care? I mean, does it matter? Like, should we really react to this at all?
Yeah. Like we said, a person's personal choice does affect those around us. And
Sure,
so,
but how does my, okay, I'm clearly a sexual male, but how does it really affect you if I say that I want to identify as a female? I mean, you say that are, the actions we do affect those around us, but how does it really affect you if I say I'm a woman?
so I'd say, wow, that's a pretty full beard for a woman.
Well, okay, well, yeah, clearly there's
But
that,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
but if I, and now I'm not transgender, but let's say I was, if I really thought I was a woman, how does that affect you at all? Can't you just go about your day and ignore me or whatever?
Yeah. So first my mind goes to I would want to respect you while at the same time trying to not condone something that I think is false.
Hmm.
Right. And so yeah, a friend and I were talking about this the other day, where he went to Drake University and he had a couple friends who were male and then had the surgery and were um, changed to be female. And so what he did was he respected them, called them she and her, used those pronouns, right? But what was hard for him in relating with his friends in this way, like he always knew them as, like he always knew this guy as Frank, where now it's Francesca. It it does cause a confusion and the way that it affects me. So if you were saying you're a woman, you're Frank and now you're Francesca, I would I would be concerned for, as your friend, for the good of your mental health, for the good of your uh, self knowledge. I would start to question, okay, I wonder why he, or now she, thinks this when prior it was never a problem. It would raise a lot of questions for me as a concerning friend. That's where I would start out. But honestly, me, Max Carson, I have never had a friend go through this, so I really haven't had much experience of.
Maybe and kind of building off that, I guess, like, so it does seem like a little bit back and forth.
Mhm.
So how do you help somebody who seems to be kind of like wrestling with their own identity? So like an identity struggle, or like in this case, like with gender and specifically, um, you I want to be able to say like there must be like some sort of like trueness here, or like there must be some sort of like truth here, maybe like something we can like stand on that like gives stability to like this person, like that. I think we all value like stability as a good thing, and when someone's like kind of switching back and forth between like two different things, whether it's gender or something else, like it gives the appearance that they're not stable, that they're not resting on something like foundationally. Not maybe that they're like unstable in the sense of um, like there's something like really wrong with them or something like that. But that there is something wrong in the sense of like they're not embracing they don't have a handle on what's going on. And so to embrace like the just to try and uh, to try and cope with it by a surgery, or by just addressing like the exterior, doesn't seem to like be fully addressing what's going on. And so um, I would say as Christians, like the reason that I would be like primarily concerned about it, and I think that the reason that we're primarily concerned about it as Christians is because we're primarily concerned with like the interior stability of a person. Can they come to grasp with who they are as a person? And when somebody kind of teeters back and forth, like that should give us reason to be worried about that person or to like want to help them in some way. So like when I see like, whoever like the next, big person is that decides to make like a gender switch, it gives, it almost like kind of affects me. It does affect me because I see the uncertainty in themselves. I see like the interior struggle almost. I experience that within myself, even though I'm seeing it in another person. I experience some of their instability, their unsurety of who they are. And so I'm automatically concerned because Christ calls me to concern.
Okay, so, perhaps it affects you, right? Perhaps what you said is fair, right? That your friend or someone you know or even someone you've heard of going through this, it does affect you, but so what? Right? Yeah, okay. Perhaps a person, decides to transition their gender, and perhaps it affects you. Perhaps it affects how you feel about them, or it affects how you maybe it calls you out to help them or that sort of thing. But even if it makes you feel a certain way, can't you just let them do their own thing,
Not if I have like an authentic care for them, though. Like I couldn't, in the same way that I couldn't allow like Max to like maim himself because like he thinks it's a good thing. Like I can't allow somebody to just like, I really, as a true Christian, I couldn't just like allow somebody to just go on in a struggle all by themselves and like try and make decisions where it might not be like might not be super clear. No matter how like, no matter how clear like everybody else seems to be saying that it is, I feel like I as another human being couldn't allow them to just go on in that uncertainty or like kind of that quavering without at least being there to like to comfort them.
It sounds to me like you're saying something like, now the church would say something like this probably, right? That, the church would claim that men and women are born men and women, and that's how they are, in body, soul, and mind, and entirety, right? And that if that's the case, for example, a man who's claiming to be in fact a woman would be wrong and would be perhaps like by attempting to transition causing more harm to himself than good, right? It seems to me like you're saying something like, well, as a Christian then, with that sort of background of belief, I have a duty to try and help that person come to the truth of what is good for them, even if it's not what they think is good for them.
Right. I mean, many of us have maybe heard this in homilies or in some theology class, but like a good parent trying to tell a child that they can't eat Fruity Pebbles for breakfast,
which is what I had for breakfast today.
like that's great you had it for breakfast, but don't have it for lunch and dinner every day because you're gonna end up being very unhealthy, being very you won't be able to function as well, right? And so what a parent tries to do is like, I know broccoli doesn't taste that great to you, but it's really good for you, so let's just have a little bit right now and try to give them the good things to help them grow and to help them become better, become healthier, become smarter, right? And those things can be painful at times, and those decisions are hard. And thank God, like if you saw me trying to maim myself because I was totally convinced that that's what was good for me and that's what I needed to do to make me happy, like you see that struggle in me that is calling you on to help me, but it's hard because I would disagree with you. Mm-hmm. Like that sense of difficulty there shows that you do care for my feelings. Like you don't want to hurt my feelings, but you care even more for my well-being. That you would
And
Go
you're
that
right.
extra mile.
Yeah, you're right, and it doesn't have to be as something as extreme as maiming, but
Right.
like you said, just it could be like something like a parent like helping like their child with a diet with their diet when they're really little, like
Yeah.
yeah. So, but it's all about the recognizing like how we can as a community, which is what it really means to be Christian, is to be a part of the community. How we can like recognize the good of another, like what's good for another person, like not in like a self-righteous way, not in a sense of like, well, I know what's best for you, but in a discerning way that says, no, this is objectively, we've already talked about that, objectively a good thing for you, and maybe something that like ought to be considered more deeply than just like kind of like a split second decision, like.
So I think that's a lot of good thoughts. I want to transition a little bit and talk about specifically. We've talked a little bit about what the culture says and what the church says and how those two things might interact, but I want to raise the question about, is there anything intrinsic to masculinity or to femininity? Is there anything really different between being a man and a woman? All right, so I want to shift gears a little bit. All right, I would argue that masculinity and femininity are different, are in fact different, not just in my opinion different, and that they're best understood when compared to each other in relationship with each other. Men are not better than women are not better than men. Men and women have equal dignity, should have equal rights, this sort of thing. But I would argue that masculinity and femininity have some distinct differences. For example, Pope John Paul II, who himself a trained philosopher and wrote on the subject of human nature and sexuality quite a lot, argues that for women, some things which are specifically feminine, what he called the feminine genius, is that women have qualities of receptivity, sensitivity, generosity, and maternity. Not that a man couldn't have some of these qualities, but that women specifically have these qualities. Receptivity means something like clearly a woman is made to receive the other. Like biologically, this is clear by like the function of the sex organs, right? But even emotionally and spiritually, John Paul II argues are able to receive another. That they're more sensitive perhaps than men. That they have the capability of generosity and being generous, and that maternity, right? Like a woman becomes a mother or can become a mother, like biologically or spiritually, right? Maybe you have an aunt or something like that who's very maternal, even though she's not a mother herself biologically, right? I have many friends who are nuns who are very motherly, although being a nun, they don't have any children, right? It seems like these things, especially like maternity and receptivity, are feminine and not necessarily masculine. What do you think about that?
When you're explaining that, I think of my own mother, who not only was a great mother to me, but the way she received and was very generous and was just so giving to one of my friends in high school who, unfortunately, his own mother walked out on his family, and so my mom really took care to receive this friend in our house. And I mean, it was just, he would be at our dinner table, he would eat our snacks that our mom prepared for us, like all of that, and she was just so quick and natural to that, and it was very beautiful to see. Like, she was a mother not only to her own kids but to other people. So my first reaction to that is just thinking of my own mother and how that came much more naturally for her than my father in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, I see a lot of those. Yeah, I guess a lot of those qualities. I could see maybe like an objection and like, and I mean, I know we have like another slide on like what like the true masculinity is, but does it seem like it could be like you're almost like limiting like the like the gender to just these traits? Like, you know what I mean?
Sure, like, okay, perhaps a man is sort of a provider, but clearly women can be providers, so
Right.
certainly this list can't be right.
Yeah, that would be kind of like the objection that's kind of raised in my own mind. Like, so are we just saying like these are just like, but these are natural to men and women? Like, these are the natural like, yeah, these are like kind of the natural. Uh, I don't know, what would you say? Like the natural qualities of men and women, or
Like they're more, like women are more quick to live in this way with
Right.
these types of
You know,
actions and reasons. Yeah.
I think the argument here is really that, of course, men can be generous and sensitive and receptive, and perhaps, I mean, maternity seems a bit of a stretch, but perhaps even maternal. Like, clearly a man can care for you and be sensitive towards you and be generous towards you, right? And the fact that he can do that doesn't make him a woman, right?
Sure.
But I think John Paul II here argues that it is something specifically feminine and something specifically like that women are good at or are naturally born with or naturally inclined to be, or like that women are naturally inclined to be maternal and generous and sensitive and receptive where perhaps men are not. Is that what he's arguing, maybe?
Yeah, I feel like there's a natural proclivity for women to have these attributes.
Right, and so
That's fair.
if that's the case, then being born a woman means something, right?
Mm-hmm.
If this is true, then being born a woman means something different than being born a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am not born with certain maternal instincts, right? I'm not naturally inclined to maternity, right? I'd be inclined to paternity, were I a well-ordered man, which I never claimed to be. But, you know, I think if John Paul II is right here, then it means there is a real difference between men and women, I think. Here's some women saints. They're nice pictures. Okay. Femininity and contrasted to masculinity. So John Paul II also argues here that men have their own sort of natural proclivities, as Max said, right? That men are generative and perhaps selfless and leaders, right? Men generate, they give up their lives for others, right? Even to death, they give of themselves and work for the care and protection of their family or for the providing for their family. They're sort of like leaders and selfless. Not that, of course, women can't be generative or leaders and selfless, right? But that these sort of things seem like things men are naturally inclined to, right? Do you think this is true, that men are naturally inclined to being, generative and selfless and leaders? Because, I mean, I think it'd be fairly controversial to say that men are inclined to be leaders and women are not. I think that'd be a very controversial statement to make. Do you think that's what JP2 is saying?
It is a controversial statement to make in this day and age. Because, we have a lot of great women leaders. We have a lot of great men leaders.
Our own governor right now, right? With our coronavirus response, Kim Reynolds.
Right, staying at home.
Seems to be a very effective leader, and she's a woman.
Yeah.
Right, so clearly women can be leaders, right? But what is John Paul trying to get at with all this? Women have these qualities and men have these qualities sort of stuff.
Well, there's, again, he's talking about this natural proclivity in men to totally give of themselves, to totally, like in Ephesians 5, Jesus calls on the man, Paul speaking, calls on the man to, in a marriage, that he should be ready to die for his bride, just as Christ died for the church. So what it means to be a true man is to be a leader and pave that way for others to the heavenly kingdom in whatever way that looks like, even to the cost of their own lives, which gets to the selfless part. And yeah, so when a man becomes more conformed to Christ in that way, he finds himself desiring that same kind of, sounds gruesome, but same kind of death for the other, same kind of self-sacrificial leadership of, I care so much about you that I will do what I need to do to make sure you get to heaven, and if that comes at the cost of my own loss, my own death, then so be it.
So I think what I'd like to do, here's some saints, men who, some of which gave their lives for the sake of their people. I'd like to get some sort of final thoughts from you two about, is there really an intrinsic difference between masculinity and femininity? Is it really true that to be a man means something different than to be a woman? That like being born a man really means that you're a man, and being born a woman really means that you're a woman. Is that really true?
Yeah, I think of I'm thinking from kind of like the finality of the calls between men and women, in generating life and protecting life and all of that. We see God the Father, we call him Father, we give him this masculine identity because he creates something from nothing, right? He's kind of outside, and he creates something out of nothing, and it's there. And where a woman, we see, like, we look at the Blessed Mother, she had life grow from within her. She had life grow from within her. By the power of the Holy Spirit, God himself, coming from the outside, life, Jesus Christ, grew within her. And that's how I see, that's how I would argue the difference between men and women with generating life. Men generate life from without, and women, it's more typical that they generate life from within. And so seeing that in God, in our Creator, and in the Blessed Mother, his most perfect creation, I would say there's some truth to that. Not some truth, all truth in that.
Walter, do you have any sort of concise statement or argument about if men and women are truly distinct, if a man is truly a man and a woman is truly a woman?
Right. I think there's something truly maybe distinct about masculinity and femininity. I think like a few slides earlier, it says it talks about the reciprocal nature of men and women, which is shown in like these qualities almost, so that men and women are only under, it says that right there, yeah, understood in relationship to each other. So like these, like we can't really have one without the other. So like we are a whole. Even the pagans had some sort of understanding of this. Like man and woman together really make the human person. It's not to say that it's like only in marriage or something like that, or only in the sexual act or something like that. But it's to say that like the human person is found both in the fullness of masculinity and the fullness of femininity. And we can't really, we shouldn't be pitting the two against each other. And John Paul isn't pitting the two against each other by outlining these qualities, these natural qualities of women and these natural qualities of men. And he's not also saying that men and women can't somehow share these qualities either, but that they're knitted together. It's like these perfect pieces that fit together for the sake of the other, for the sake of union, ultimately like union with God.
All right, thank you. So for y'all, all right, there's an assignment posted on OnCampus where I ask you to take a look at a couple of videos. What Father Mike Schmitz has to say about what the church says about sexual identity, and then a video about what the culture has to say about sexual identity. So I want you to take a look at these videos. I want you to think about what we said in our discussion here. And I want you to go to OnCampus and engage in the discussion board over these topics. Follow the prompt, answer the questions. So with that, this has been our lesson 3 for bioethics, in exile, if you will. Thank you to our esteemed guests, the most Mr. Max Carson and the very Mr. Walter Pugh. You'll get that joke if you were ever in seminary. Not that any of us were ever in seminary. So thank you very much for your attendance, and I'll see you again on Thursday.